Hi guys, welcome back to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome back to another video. This time, delighted to say we're joined by none other than the athletics correspondent for Watford, Mr. Adam Leventhal. Adam, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really well, really well. How are you, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm great, and it's a pleasure to have you on. And we were just speaking before off camera that you're so busy at the moment. I mean, I was listening to all the podcasts on the Athletic. Great stuff. But how has that been delivering podcasts every single day with different clubs that aren't Watford? Has that been difficult?
Yeah, so we've had the 20 preview podcasts on the Ornstein and Chapman feed. If people aren't exactly aware of them, it's been really, really good actually, because obviously we've had 3 months off, haven't we? And retuning your mind into exactly where everyone is, especially the teams around Watford, has been quite interesting actually. Especially finding out the mindsets of the likes of Norwich and Aston Villa and Bournemouth especially. And then also, the two teams above us in West Ham and Brighton. And I don't know, it's been quite sort of heartening, I think, that the teams above are feeling quietly confident. And I don't think that they've really got that much reason to feel particularly confident, if I must say.
Yeah.
If you look at Brighton's run-in, it's pretty bad. West Ham, meanwhile, their form coming into lockdown was pretty poor, although they were playing better. That's what I learnt from Roshane Thomas, Sam Delaney, when I spoke to them about West Ham. That's an interesting one if you want to dig that one out. And then, at the bottom, Norwich, Michael Bailey was sort of basically saying that, they're just going to take this as a free hit and try and enjoy it. And I think maybe, Aston Villa, we saw that sort of sterile atmosphere, and that's what we have to sort of get used to now at Villa Park in that first game. And then Bournemouth as well, they're in poor form. But it's so difficult to predict at the moment. I mean, you try and sort of nail it down and go, oh, well, this and this is going to happen. But it's anyone's guess, really. I mean, I suppose that first game we saw with Villa and Sheffield United, did that really tell us much? Probably not. Sheffield United away from home have been pretty sort of, defence-minded anyway, and try and sort of eke out a win if they can. If not, they'll keep a clean sheet. And that's what they would have done if VAR had been working, or the goal line technology and the VAR had been working, I suppose. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Adam, before we get into your article about Javi, I listened to the TIFO podcast that you swapped roles, didn't you, from the interviewer to the interviewee?
Yeah.
And you said that you couldn't call whether Watford would stay up. Why are you so on the fence with that?
It's not a matter of it depends if you're a glass half full or a glass half empty sort of person. I think that the unknown quantity is the biggest factor. And perhaps after that first game against Leicester, we'll be able to guide our thinking a little bit better, because we'll see how the players have pitched up after this long break. I got an insight into that in the game against Brentford, which was behind closed doors. And then in the news conference that we had today with Nigel Pearson, I know we'll talk about that a bit more later, but he mentioned the fact that they had another 11 versus 11 game. I think that's what he said in the press conference. I think they had one. I think they had one today as well, and then they obviously had one prior last Tuesday, I think it was. So, they've prepared as much as they can, and we just have to see if they click into gear. And it's going to be difficult to judge it against Leicester, because Leicester will obviously be very attack-minded. They'll be feeling very confident. They're very well organised. They're very dangerous. But I'm sure you remember, and people watching will remember, that it was the first game post-Kike that we played Leicester away from home. It was freezing cold. Deeney came back and started. And we didn't do too badly. And that was when we were pretty much at our lowest ebb. So, we can get something against Leicester. And then if we can just build on something going into the game against Burnley and then against Southampton, then hopefully it'll sort of be a slow burn, and then we can be hitting the games against I know we've got Chelsea away, but then Norwich and Newcastle and West Ham in fine fettle, having to get those points in those games. Those are the ones that we have to get points in. And I think we're probably going to have to get 4 wins along the way. So they're going to have to come from, realistically, 5 games that we think that we can probably get points in, and that's Burnley, Southampton, Norwich, Newcastle and West Ham.
Yeah.
You know, you're not really budgeting for points against Leicester, Chelsea, Man City and Arsenal. But that said, we have got points, you know, against Manchester United, against Wolves. You know, we beat Villa at home in that great run. We took a point off Tottenham. We could have won at Anfield. So there are reasons to be cheerful. I just think it's a matter of trying to sort of wait and see, and then we'll know who's looking in good form against Leicester City and how well they are looking organised. So I've just remained on the fence, really. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
I tell you, it was a great answer without answering the question.
Yeah, exactly. So the question was why? Why do I think? I think that's because of the uncertainty, but and I think we just have to wait and see. But I think it will be a very good guide against Leicester, because we'll also get an idea of how those players react to a high pressure situation when they have to get points because they think, right, we are at home, we should really try and get something out of this game. And we'll see how they mentally rise to the occasion. So, you know...
Interesting you touched on that, Adam. In terms of the home advantage, do you think it will make a difference at Vicarage Road? Because in your recent piece, you mentioned about Foster being very vocal about the fake crowd noise, and I think we'll touch on that in a little bit later. But do you think that'll be a factor, particularly with those teams at the bottom?
You obviously lose the home advantage, don't you? Which can be a leveller against the big teams, which we saw against Liverpool and Manchester United and Wolves as well. You know, the Vicarage Road atmosphere for those games was immense. So you lose that. I think in terms of what the team will be trying to do, you know, Ben Foster talking about the fact that, yes, they don't like the fake crowd noise. Nigel Pearson followed that up today. He was saying he doesn't like sort of canned laughter sort of element of it. But I think that they have to be motivating themselves, and that can maybe be, not that they have to sort of be cheerleaders for themselves, but they have to sort of just put their what would be the right word to use? Not shame, but sort of like their self-pride aside. Yeah. Just go, look, if we need to generate a feeling when we're in the tunnel, a la sort of Cardiff at the Millennium Stadium, win it in the tunnel and all that sort of stuff, just to get ourselves pumped up, do it. I don't care if you think, oh, this might look a bit weird. Yeah. Do it, because you're the ones that are going to be, you know, the ones that will be going down at the end of the day if you don't win the points. So I would say to them, you know, just go for it and be as loud as you want on the pitch and be as sort of forceful as you want and be as physical as you want, because we have to win at home. I think on the sort of the home advantage side of things, I think it will play a part because of the familiarity. But also I think what is important, and this was mentioned in an article that Matt Slater did for The Athletic, that we've got good away fixtures, because it's only that trip to Burnley, isn't it, that is of a big distance. So hopefully that might have a bit of an advantage, that they're not going to be tired out too much, especially when the turnover of games is going to be so tight. So we'll see.
In terms of the fake crowd noise, have you heard maybe an update about whether that's going to be kept for the home games of Vicarage Road? Because as you mentioned, Foster was against it, Pearson seems to be against it, and even Shakespeare as well, after the Brentford game, was like, it didn't make much of a difference and we don't really want it there. Is that going to be something that's going to be taken away for the home games?
Well, from what Pearson said, it seems, right, yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't know if it will be entirely stripped back, because the game against Brentford, they obviously had music, and then prior to kickoff, they had a few sort of familiar chants before kickoff, which I think is quite, I don't mind that. I think that's quite a good thing to do, to just sort of, you know, tune the minds into the fact that, oh yeah, we are doing this for fans. We're not just here doing it and having a training session. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having a little bit of a reminder. And I think that also, I did a piece a while ago, and I spoke to Richard Lee, former Watford keeper.
Yeah.
And he was saying something interesting about the fact that, music can actually play quite a key part in how players prepare. And I know he's big into his sort of mental preparation, and he's all into that. And some players would just go, it makes no odds to me. They could be playing, anything, and it wouldn't make any difference. But I think, for some players, just having that familiar build-up noise that when you're pulling up your socks, putting your shin pads on, you're hearing it sort of build up. It helps with that mental preparation. So I think they will probably keep those elements to it. It's what they take away, which they had against Brentford, which was they used crowd noise when there was an attacking corner. I don't think there was many of them. I think I remember on one or two occasions when they were kicking towards the rookery, they had a few chants sort of before a corner. Maybe it's that they'll get away with, or they'll take away. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. But all the noises are that we're not going to have any noise, and we're just going to sort of concentrate on just playing football in that eerie environment, that sterile environment. It was so
must have been odd. Must be really odd.
Yeah,
we were following, all the fans are following on Twitter, and it just didn't really seem right. I think there was a Watford Observer journalist who was like, this is just so odd. It must be weird for a journalist as well to kind of, I don't know, to be in those circumstances. You're used to the whole pre-match preparation, interviews before, after, keeping your distance. What is it actually like? I was going to ask you about the protocols for journalists. How does it work when you turn up to the ground?
It's very different. I mean, to be brutally honest, it's a lot easier. Because you don't have to sort of. I know we usually get there a lot earlier, but there's less traffic. You have to arrive an hour before, so it's quite controlled. I think that will probably stay for Premier League games. So for the Brentford game, I was there at 11:30. You park on the car park down Occupation Road, walk up, go in. There's not much sort of faffing around in the press room or anything like that. You know that you're going, and although there was sort of food offered in the concourse down in the Sir Elton John, I just sort of brought a packed lunch myself, my own water. So you just sort of go in. I mean, prior to entering, we had sort of like a health questionnaire, and they basically ask you standard questions about any symptoms and things like that. They do a temperature check. Then they gave you, it was funny actually, I hadn't, my wife had ordered some masks, so some like linen ones, so reusable ones rather than using the temporary ones. And I went in I've got it here, where is it? I went in like a Snood thing, which is like a cycling thing. So I'm cycling. So I had one of these on, and as I was walking up Occupation Road in this, I was like, oh, this is so hot, because it's also got the neck thing as well. I was like, this is going to be tough to actually maintain this all day. And thankfully, they actually gave out masks. So they gave out these sort of surgical masks, which I wore, which are a lot lighter. And I know it sounds churlish to be sort of complaining about what mask you're wearing, but it was one of the considerations of going to the game, and it was part of the process. But then, when you go in, you just sort of you sit down. You're 2 meters apart from the other journalists. I was sat next to Ryan Gray from the Watford Observer. There wasn't many other journalists there for that game. There'll obviously be a lot more for the Leicester game, but they've actually limited the amount of journalists that can actually go into games. So it's basically down to one person per publication, which on the whole it is anyway. But they've just sort of controlled the numbers a lot more, and they're not doing sort of post-match press conferences in press rooms or anything like that. We're doing everything via Zoom. And there isn't a mix zone, so you won't be able to sort of grab a player after the game or anything like that. So there are big differences. And just in general, you can hear a lot more, which is really helpful, and you get a really good insight into the interactions on the football pitch. You know what it reminded me of? And this well, no. Do you remember when you showed how good a footballer you were when we played at Vicarage Road, and I showed how rusty I was?
God, that was a year ago, wasn't it? What a great day that was!
It was before the cup final. Little did we know, 24 hours later, we were going to be thumped by City. But no, it's like it's like an under 23s game. If anyone's been, there's less noise than an under 23s game. And it's really sad. It's really sad that we're obviously, having to play football in this situation. And it does sort of, the surroundings, obviously, with Watford General side by side, you can't get away from the fact that it is, for some people, this is going to seem so sort of insensitive that we're playing football. But when you look at it, it's just it's another business, like any other business, just trying to make the best of a bad situation. So, it's a very, very strange sort of scenario. And in the centre of it, those players are very, very similar to all of us. They're going to have to get their melons around the whole situation and see if they can perform to the levels that everyone expects of them.
You talked about the differences for a journalist. What and you talked about, you can hear the players speaking. I mean, in your recent piece, you talked about Ben Foster, how loud he is from the back. I mean, I can normally hear him on a match day with 20,000 people in Vicarage Road, let alone he must be seriously loud without anyone in the ground. From that Brentford game, what did you take away from it? Because I was hearing the standouts was Danny Welbeck, seeing him on the left-hand side. He looked like someone who's come back to full fitness. And I think for Watford fans, we really, really want it to work for Danny Welbeck. He hasn't had a good run of luck in his career, let alone at Watford. I mean, that Tottenham game summed up, pulling his hamstring after 4 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So was he a standout from the Brentford game, and was there any other players that caught your eye that filled in?
Yeah, I think first of all on Welbeck, it was really heartening to see him, in a game that people were thinking, right, well, are they going to be really pushing it in this game, or is it going to be quite sort of softly? He went for it, and he was testing himself out. And, having seen instances like that Tottenham game you mentioned, where his first pushed run in a game, his hamstring popped, he burst down the left-hand side, really, really pushed, and was then able to cut in and play it to Capoue, who scored. And there was some good link-up play from him. So he looked lively. He didn't have Deeney in the centre. He had Gray. So, but still there was a good sort of combination play between the two of them. And, speaking to Pearson today, he was saying that they've got plenty of options in terms of the formations that they want to play. 4-2-3-1, they can go to a 4-4-2 if they want to. I mean, the 4-2-3-1 for other people will appear to be a 4-3-3. The other players that sort of stood out, I thought, and I hadn't been overly impressed with him, and considering he sort of got thrown straight in, I felt a little bit for him, was Ignacio Pozzo, that he looked good. He looked sort of solid and fit and ready to go and very adaptable, and he slotted in initially in the first half. He was on the right-hand side in Sarr's position, and then he dropped back to right back, which was a sort of just a nice option to know that he's potentially able to do that, and that he can combine well with Sarr if need be, if Kiko goes down with an injury or whatever. Other players that sort of stood out, I mean, Decore and Capoue looked sort of their usual selves in midfield. Tom Cleverley, it was interesting to see him play at the sort of the front tip of the midfield three as a number 10. And then in the second half, I was really impressed with João Pedro coming on. And he came on when Will Hughes came off with an injury. And he was really sort of, he looked a lot more powerful. He looked very sort of full of attacking instinct, very comfortable on the ball, very just keen to progress and go forward. And we've needed that drive, haven't we? That's why a lot of people, I guess, have been saying, oh, let's get Domingos Quina in there and sort of just someone with a bit of extra sort of guile in there just to sort of change things up in the attacking third. And Pedro looked good down the left. He played a really good ball through to Sarr on one occasion. He obviously crossed in for Sarr's goal as well. So he's someone on the periphery that I think is just a genuine sort of wild card option. And I think in these games, the last 9 games, to have a few of those sort of randoms to throw in.
Peñaranda's another one.
And Peñaranda, exactly, another one. Why not? Let's give it a go. And that might be I think it's probably going to be more in I don't know whether it's going to be in a tight situation or just giving them an opportunity to show their worth. Maybe if we're a goal up and someone's sort of blowing a little bit, give them a go on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side, or, so they've got options. And it does also remind you that, the plans that have been put in place for this squad, things haven't necessarily actually developed as the sort of the technical director Filippo Giraldi will have wanted, I think, at times. But they've bought these players to be the next cabs on the rank, and they haven't necessarily got their opportunities at the right time if they've been sort of transitioning between head coaches and things like that, and injuries and stuff. So I don't know, it almost feels like there's a lot of players in there. And if you can refine it down, hopefully by staying in the Premier League, or maybe even going down to the Championship and sort of giving all these young players a go to sort of play all the time, that they need to sort of whittle everything down. But they have got players in there that can make a difference and that are exciting. And we have to remember that Watford, thankfully, have been able to get hold of a lot of exciting young players, and ones that can be profitable for the football club, but can also be profitable at the football club, and making an impact, if any of that garbled nonsense made any sense.
In terms of the Brentford game, the players that missed out, we had Messina, Cathcart and Pereira, if I can remember correctly. Yeah. There may be someone else, but in terms of those three, was there any news about their injuries? I think Nigel might have mentioned that Pereira was back in the press conference today. Was there any update on those three?
There was no sort of direct mention of them struggling, and I think the day after there was shots of Cathcart and Messina training, so there's no reason to think that they're not going to be fit. Pereira, there wasn't any sort of, they didn't go through a sort of a direct briefing, because I think there was quite a lot of attention on the fact that obviously Delafeu is not coming back this season. We knew that. Jan Mat's not coming back this season. Isaac Success is out. So it sort of led on to a strand of talking about the fact that we have to be careful with the injuries, and maybe this preparation period has been very, very short. But I think what they're probably doing, and maybe for that Brentford game, anyone that wasn't feeling 100%, they didn't want to put them under any extra strain for that game. So yeah, if you're not fit, fine, sit it out. We'll probably have another run out before the Leicester game in some form. By all accounts, and going on Nigel Pearson's words, they are all fit and all available, and that includes Troy Deeney as well. So on that front, the news is good. But then we have been in this situation before where everything's been good, and then on the day of the game, X has got a groin, or Y has got a calf or whatever. So and there are options in those positions as well, if you think about it. So if Messina's not there, Holebas can play. Who else was? Yeah, Pereira. That might give Welbeck a chance anyway on the left. And who was the third player that we talked to? Cathcart. Other central defenders. So it's not the end of the world if any of those players are missing. If it was Decore, Capu, and Deeney that were missing, then you'd be worried. But it wasn't.
Is a right back an area that's going to be targeted by Watford during this summer?
I think and this is not trying to sort of pour water on any transfer speculation, because it is very interesting, and it is sort of I love it as well, as much as you. But I think at the moment, these are the two key things for me, that they're not making any decisions. And I genuinely mean this. They will have pot spoiling on players that they think, right, good, we're safe, we'll go and get them. But at the moment, they don't want to be committing to anything, because there's no point. They don't know the players that they would lose if they went down. They don't know the monetary value of the players that they could sell if they either go down or stay up. So they can't then balance that against the money that they would be able to spend to buy. So there are lots of things that are literally just on hold until we get an idea of what division Watford are going to be in. And then they'll be able to sort of act on certain things. And I think from the players' points of view, they are also in that scenario as well. So just take Ryan Fraser, for example. I don't think he's necessarily going to be someone that Watford would snaffle up, but there has been an interest in him. You know, he'll probably want to go to a bigger club, and it seems that he's quite sort of calculated in his moves. Either that's him or his agent, but he can just wait and see. And once, you know, teams get to the end of the season, end of July, you've then got August, you've got September, you've got into October now. So the beginning of October, I think that's what UEFA announced today. So there is a lot of time, and I don't think that anyone's going to rush into it. Probably because of finances, that will play a big part. But from Watford's point of view in particular, I think this season it's almost going to be interesting. They're going to be like fishermen pulling in their nets to trawl in all the loanees.
Yeah.
And to be able to sort of go, right, okay, we've got Suarez, we've got Hernandez, we've got Estupiñán, we've got Mateus Ais as well, I think, in La Liga. There's others, you know, Ben Wilmot's at Swansea, all these sorts of players. And then, you know, you're almost in a position where you're strengthening the side, having developed them elsewhere, and you're not having to spend money. And that's basically sort of one of the central tenets of the Pozzo model. You don't want to spend too much money. You want to turn a profit. So I think that there's not really any hurry, and there's not going to be any hurry in any players committing to Watford yet, because they don't know what division they're going to be in. So it's very, very difficult to know exactly what's going to happen. But in terms of positions, I don't think that there is any position that they would go, no, we're nailed on with that. And with Janmaat, I think it was prior to the Burnley game that he...
A long time ago.
Yeah, he picked up that injury. And it was, I think he was on the cover of the programme that day, I think, if memory serves.
That is good memory.
So, you know, and they clearly, you know, when you stick someone's face on the front of a programme, you're not expecting him to be ruled out for the rest of the season. And I was trying to work out if there's been any curse of players. I know that Fulquier featured on the front of a programme.
Goodness me.
That was after Man City, I think it was. I think that was against Swansea. Anyway, so, you know, the point being that I think, you know, when Nigel Pearson took over, he was looking as if Janmaat was not far away. And, you know, on a human level, it must be a nightmare for him, because it's obviously been a complicated injury. And yeah, I think they'll probably think when you have a new head coach come in, if all goes to plan and they say, right, well, we're going to kick on with you, Nigel and Craig, and we're going to go into a new season. Where do you think we need to strengthen? Well, he'll look at the players that he's had available to him, some of which he'll go, right, well, yeah, I can definitely work with these guys. Others, he'll go, well, no, I don't think they're good enough. And if you look in the right back situation, yeah, he'll go, okay, I don't know what Janmaat is going to come back. So yeah, maybe we might need to bring in another right back. That's why they're looking at it. We know that Kiko can do a job. Maybe we can step up a gear at right back. Same goes in the left back position. Holebas, not a good enough backup anymore. Unfortunately for him, he's too old. He's not moving as freely as he was, but he can still just about do a job in the Premier League. But Messina has moved above him. Across the back, centre halves, they need players. Obviously, Capu would be great if he stays. The same goes for Decore as well if he stays. And then up front, do they need a striker? Can they use one of Suarez or Hernandez? Left back Estupiñán, by the way, he could maybe come in if Watford stay in the Premier League. Yeah, and if they can keep hold of him and think, right, well, yeah, if we bring him in and he plays a season in the Premier League, he'll be worth more than what some of the La Liga teams are saying that they want to pay for him now, because he's attracting interest from playing at Osasuna. So, it's complicated, isn't it? Who would want to run a football club?
I'll tell you what, of all the clubs you could cover for the Athletic, I think Watford's probably the best one, because there's always something going on with Watford. You never have a dull day, like being a journalist covering Watford, surely. Yeah,
it's fascinating. And I think it's, you know, it might, you know, Watford, it will be little old Watford, irrelevant Watford to a lot of people, but I think it is fascinating to look at it, because it's such a different model and it has been followed by so many other football clubs, really. And I think there are other football clubs. I mean, I looked into, obviously, the Pozzo scouting network for the Athletic, and I sort of dug into that in as much detail as I could. And, you know, I spoke to sources from other football clubs, and while some of them will say, yeah, we wouldn't do things like that, others were very sort of effusive in their praise for Watford in having a body of work to be able to draw in players from, countries that maybe they're not set up to do. So Watford have done it with Brazilian players before, bringing Richarlison in. That paved the way for João Pedro to come in, and a whole host of other nations. So it is very, very interesting, but it can be very complicated at the same time. But it is fun. That's what it's all about.
I'm very jealous of your job, but in terms of
I'm watching my back. You're doing good things. I'm watching my back.
Oh, cheers, Adam. Talking about the Pozzo scouting, or just the Pozzo model in general, your piece released today, touching on Javi Gracia and the clinical nature of his dismissal. I was reading it and I felt really sorry for Javi, actually, the way that the whole situation just panned out, receiving news via his agent, not even speaking to Gino, Scott. It was only Filippo Giraldi who he said he was very close to throughout his time at Watford. Did you feel almost a sense of, did you feel sorry for Javi when you were speaking to him? It was, I wasn't even there speaking to him, but I got this kind of the sense from the article that he was really upset to leave Watford. He had a real connection with the club. He still lives in Hertfordshire, of course. What was that interview like with Javi? It was
very interesting finally to get a chance to speak to him. And to give you a bit of sort of inside detail, I've been trying to sort of pin him down for quite a long time, but he hadn't necessarily wanted to do an interview yet, because he didn't want to sort of interfere with what was going on. And I think that sort of speaks about his dignity and not wanting to sort of complicate matters. And although it is a very, very interesting detail in that interview regarding the way that his time was ended, he was also able to speak and give his own version of events. And it's not always something that people will want to read, because they'll think, well, I don't remember it like that. I remember it in a completely different way. And I remember other people saying this or saying that. But sometimes it's good to offer people an opportunity to give their own opinions on why they think it failed. Other people will be able to chip in and say, well, yeah, maybe you were too nice, or maybe you'd lost the dressing room, or maybe things had just gone stale. But from his perspective, he said that the players were still behind him, whether they were or whether they weren't. I mean, that's ultimately the decision that the hierarchy had to make. But the one thing that came across from it was that he felt it was too soon. It's too soon to make a massive call like that. And I think if you look at it in the fullness of time, he'll probably be proved to be partly correct. Take Ismail Assar, for example. Yeah, he came back later because of the Africa Cup of Nations. But it meant that Javi was having to get used to him. He'd just come in and scored against Coventry. And then there was a game against Newcastle. He probably thought, right, okay, we're in this game. I'm on the verge of getting a point. I'll take that. Thank you very much. Even though we should have been getting 3 anyway because of that VAR decision. And then you get rid of him, and then you have a new head coach that then has to assess his squad. For Sarr, he will have gone, whoa, I've just joined a new club. Right, I'm already into my second head coach and I've only been here for a month. And when you see how important Sarr was, once he got to grips with everything, that could have happened earlier as well. And, obviously we saw him come in the last game of Kike's reign and scored against Southampton. Obviously, there was another VAR decision which cost us, at least at just 1 point. So I think all these transitions over time, and especially for Javi, have sort of meant that it's really obviously contributed to it being a hugely disjointed season. And if you just kept your nerve a little bit and put your faith in someone that you'd already given a longer contract, then maybe that might have been a better decision than go with Kike. But then and I know that time can sort of blur the mind a little bit, but when he came in, and that lift that Kike gave against Arsenal was incredible. They played so well in the second half in particular. They weren't great in the first half, but they played particularly well in the second half. But then he ruined it for himself by going up to Man City and trying some sort of harebrained experiment.
Goodness.
And I just thought that was very, very strange from Kike. And I thought that it was
just killed the momentum.
It killed the momentum, and it took quite a few games to get over that. So, going back to your original point, I think you don't necessarily feel really sorry for someone, but you can agree with their argument. And his argument was he deserved to have more time. And I think there wouldn't have been any harm in giving him until at least the next international break, having got a point on the board at Newcastle. But if you then do look at the VAR decisions, at 1-0 down against Brighton, it should have been a penalty when Glenn Murray handballed the ball, in my opinion. Then at Everton, Deulofeu gets tripped by Yerry Mina. It should have been a penalty. And we were good in the second half. In the first half, responding after the setback, and then in the second half, Deeney should have scored. West Ham, I think that was probably the game that tipped the balance. Because I think it was Michail Antonio that was getting the run of the game on the right-hand side, didn't counter that. And then I think that's how we found out on the Athletic as well, from Kike, that he actually got contacted around the West Ham game time. So they had already put the wheels in motion. And I think that's where you feel sympathy for Javi, that he didn't really have any idea that they were already making the next plan. I think they'd given him an opportunity to show that he could be there for at least, another month until the next international break. But then something triggered within them, and they just thought, no, come on, let's do it. Let's try and make the change. And above all of this, however much, the ruthlessness and all that sort of stuff might upset people, they would have only done it. They weren't just having a laugh. They were doing it to try and get results. They would have done it with the best of intentions. And unfortunately, it didn't work out with Kike. But I think every Watford fan will hope that, they've made another call, and hopefully with Pearson, this will come off. If it doesn't, then they will assess the season and they'll go, right, well, we're as much to blame for it as the players, unfortunately. That you have to take collective responsibility in this sort of scenario, don't you?
With that piece with Javi, did you get the impression there was maybe a slight grudge towards the board in terms of the manner of the way the news was delivered through his agent, where it wasn't? I think the least the man deserved for what he achieved at Watford was a man-to-man chat. Okay, we feel this is the best decision, not to find out the news via his agent. Did you get the impression that he's got a little grudge maybe towards the hierarchy at Watford?
I think there's obviously a bitter taste in his mouth about how it was done. But he did also say, and that's the thing, obviously, in the article, the headlines catch the eyes. But then in the article, he goes on to explain that, yes, he could understand after 3 games with 3 defeats. Yeah, I can understand that owners are going to start to look and doubt and worry. But he also outlined the fact that he did have a meeting after the Coventry game with Gino, and all looked sort of relatively well. So I think from the point of view of how it was done, I think it's probably sort of made him feel obviously disappointed and shocked, he said, and surprised. But he's also, and it's outlined in the article, that he has got a sort of a positive mindset on things, and he will use this to hopefully make him better in the future. And let's be fair on this. I wasn't expecting this season to have to write 2 articles about 2 former head coaches. But obviously I went over to see Kike in Madrid as well. And he said when he was let go, Gino came to his office, they had a conversation, and it was all very amicable. So I don't know, because I don't get to speak to Gino, but it might have been, and I'm just pure speculation, but he might have thought, oh, you know what, maybe we didn't do it right with Javi, and I'll make sure that I do it right with Kike. I don't know if that's true. It may or may not have been the case. So, you learn by your mistakes, don't you? And that applies to everyone. So I think, on the whole, the way that sometimes things are done at Watford is pretty ruthless, but so far it has worked up until this season. And I guess they're still hoping that their last act of ruthlessness, i.e. bringing in Nigel Pearson, will be a masterstroke.
Yeah, and we'll see at the end of the season whether they're ruthless in keeping him on, because I think that's one that's in the balance. I'd like to see Nigel kept on regardless of our division status. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but I think the impact he's had at the club, and I think even if we did go down, I'd back. Well, it'd be difficult to bounce straight back. I don't want to be too pessimistic, but I think Nigel Pearson and Craig Shakespeare would be two men who you'd want at your football club to get the team back out of the Championship.
They will obviously have their own ideas, but it would make more sense. Well, it makes sense in both directions. If we stay up or we go down, to keep him. If he keeps us up, obviously he deserves another chance because he's pulled off a miracle. And if we go down, then he's au fait with the Championship, and he's got teams up from there before. I suppose the only argument against that is if we go down with a whimper and there is nothing to sort of grab hold of. And let's be completely truthful. Yeah, the initial run was great. What was it? 4 wins out of 6 or something.
Yeah,
under Pearson. But then afterwards, it was
apart from the Liverpool game.
Yeah. Three defeats in 4. But then that coincided with Sarr being out, so it showed how pivotal he was. So I think it's really important that Pearson and Shakespeare alongside each other can now reprove that they are something to be reckoned with in terms of a management team. And obviously, if that ends with him keeping Watford up, then of course he will stay on. It's very difficult to know how it's going to go, and also how all the players are dealing with having him in charge. But all the noises that you get from everyone is, he's clear in his instructions. He's got a little bit of a fear factor to him, but he is also a human being. He cares. And that's something I think a lot of people lose track of. Yeah, he is sort of an imposing character. He can sort of give you a sort of a stare here and there, but he is a sort of a sensitive soul in there. And I think that he's shown that, and trying to strike the balance between sort of drill instructor and disciplinarian, and being able to have a bit of fun, and being sensitive to people's issues, especially, during the COVID-19 lockdown. He's been very much in line with the football club. And I think that's another thing to take into consideration. He gets the football club, and that is really, really important. And I think it's helped join the fans up with the project, basically. And I know it's sort of weird to still call it a project after 8 years, but the fact that he's been able to go, well, no, we're a community club. He's been able to articulate that because he understands it.
It's been fascinating to chat, Adam. Thank you so much for coming on. It would be great to get you on again, actually, to talk about, whenever the news breaks. There's some big breaking news, as there always is at Watford. But I mean, even when you're talking about the Pozzo scouting model, we could talk about that for hours. So it'd be great to get you back on again. It's been brilliant to chat. We'll leave all the links to Adam's articles in the description below, particularly that one with Javi that's been released today. Make sure you do follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Adam Leventhal on Twitter, at Adam Leventhal Insta on Instagram.
That's the one.
That's the one. Good memory. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. Don't forget to subscribe to WD18, and we'll catch you in the next video.